allow me to tell you a story that keeps future me up at night. Give it some time, and the future might start to work in reverse by giving this speaker on stage, myself, some sleepless nights. And that's because the story I'm about to share with you guys isn't just a story. And it won't make sense when I say this now, but I need you to remember the story, or a story, isn't just one story. Now, let's pay very close attention to your character. The clock shows 9. 9 o'clock in the morning. Your character is someone that you should follow very intently. And I want you to picture this character. He's got a 9 o'clock meeting. And as anyone does, when they need to get to their meeting, they need to commute somehow. So, what does he do? He calls an Uber, which we should all be pretty familiar with. Now, if you're not sure how Uber works, typically someone sends a request for a ride, the drivers in the area see the request, and one of them taps accept, and usually the one who's nearby will get that ride. And so, a nice man, an older man, this driver, he taps accept. The kind of guy that you don't really want to rush, because what are you going to tell this older man? Hey, can you drive faster? Can you speed up? Can you drive more aggressively? No, you're not going to do that. So, the man gets in the car, and the driver makes a wrong turn, and the ETA for the ride was 8:57, now it's 8:59. You're 2 minutes behind. The driver lets a yellow light that he probably could have made. We all know that feeling when you probably could go through the light. Remember, he's cautious, so he comes to a halt. And he does this not once, not twice, but 3 times. And now all of a sudden you look at the clock and you realize you're not arriving at 8:57 anymore. You're arriving at 9:03. 3 minutes late. So he walks through the door into the building, already annoyed, not at the driver exactly, but at that helpless feeling that we should all be familiar with when time is slipping and you can't do anything about it. He's already imagining the look on his early as on time boss's face, and he's doing the math in his head like the universe is going to grade him on his punctuality. Up the stairs, he passes by a woman who asks him a very simple question. Where is the nearest washroom? And he ignores her. Then she asks again, where's the nearest washroom? And then he snaps. Nothing more than that, just sharp, dismissive, and rude. The kind of thing that, lasts only 2 seconds when you snap at someone, but the kind of feeling that lasts for an entire day. And so he carries on. He sits down with his boss, and his boss sighs. The kind of sigh that we should once again be all familiar with, because it's the kind of sigh that signals the conversation is pretty much already over before it has even begun. This is the 3rd time he's been late for his meeting this week, and the boss is clearly upset. He's not happy. And so his boss tells him, we need to talk about that promotion. And now, the man's heart sinks even more. The promotion that he had been counting on, the one that would have probably kept him at that company for a few more years, that salary raise, the one that would signal that his boss, deep down, trusts him, the boss is now pulling that promotion on him. And now, the boss is telling him, maybe next quarter, we'll have to think about it. This is no longer a message about time management. This is a message about trust, reliability, responsibility, about whether this man is ready. And so, the man quits. Yeah, it's pretty abrupt and it signals sort of this type of confusion. But for anyone who's that kind of procrastinator, who tries to get things done in the last minute, and that seeps into where they go, and maybe they're a few minutes late, you constantly feel like you're just in a hurry to get so many things done at once. And that feeling is something that you can relate to with this man. Because
it's no longer about the promotion. It's the fact that the boss saw him as replaceable over being 3 minutes late. For anyone who isn't late everywhere, it's punctual. You probably won't relate much to this. But it's that feeling that someone doesn't recognize who you are, and they just count you as being someone who's just constantly late everywhere. Anyways, he quits, and he tries to do what a lot of people do when their story ends. Try to write a new one. And so that startup company idea he's had in the back of his mind ever since he was a teenager, he's going to put that into action. But to do that, he needs some money. So he reaches out to someone, a trusty link, to find a mutual connection, and he messages several people, several of his mutual connections. And eventually, he gets a reply in a coffee chat. One individual. The crazy part about this is that he finds out in this coffee chat that this individual was about to leave only a few days later. Who knows what would have happened if the timeline was shifted just ever so slightly. But after tons of messages, he finally gets that meeting. So in that meeting, it showcases lots of promise. He eventually does get the investment, and the startup takes off. Lots of money is made. What a success. And truly, this story I'm sharing with you is one about grit, determination. You guys have probably heard that before, except I would hope that that's not what any of you thought. Because in reality, imagine a parallel universe where another driver clicked accept, where that one wrong turn didn't happen, where he smiled at the woman in the hallway, arrived on time, sat down in front of his boss, and stayed comfortable. Now, this is not a story about how you have to step out of your comfort zone. This is a reminder that if you're even smarter, you'll realize that that one story is actually three.
Watch as the dominoes fall. A driver taps accept, a wrong turn, a yellow light, 3 minutes, a hallway, a promotion, a resignation, a LinkedIn message, a startup. We talk about the future as though it's going to be one big change. Society transforms, AI takes over, and you're privy to automation everywhere. But in reality, that is not how change works. Change, and that's what this book prefaces, is when a million tiny things stop being tiny. Because remember, 10 years ago, that cascade, that feeling of network where one thing leads to the next, yes, it happened. Yes, you could find a mutual connection and call a cab ride, build a pitch deck, and get funding. But could you do it all before the end of the week? Were things that fast? So now I ask you 10 years from now, what happens between the distance between one domino and the next domino isn't so large anymore. It's rather small. And when a little nudge causes the dominoes to fall sequentially, what happens then? When the network of dominoes falls because the friction in the network is less, we should all understand that key concept. And that's what the cascade, this book, prefaces. It's a fascinating story. 3-minute delay becomes a career pivot, becomes a company, becomes who knows. And so for all my peers who love English literature, the Cascade is a book that has the following moral takeaway. The future isn't one big domino. It's 1,000 tiny ones, falling faster than we can track. The second book is one that I picked up a few days later. Except it was rather odd because you rewind and you're no longer focusing on the dominoes, but rather a person.
He's in the car looking at the clock, already in a meeting when he's in the Uber that hasn't even started. He's already preempting his boss's objections that haven't even happened yet. He's already doing the math in his head like the universe is going to grade him on his punctuality.
And then, you should test yourself here, what happens next? A woman asks him a simple question and he snaps. He becomes someone who he doesn't recognize. That's the part that grabs my attention. Because Here's what speed actually takes from you. When things are moving fast, yes, it costs you your time, but it also costs you your presence. That idea that you're constantly 3 minutes ahead, already reacting to things that haven't even happened yet. That is a central gap between where you are and where your mind is. As a result, you become the person who's irritable. You become the person who's quick to snap. You become the person who snap at a stranger for us. A simple question. See, that is the hidden cost of instant empathy. And really, it's a unique underlying takeaway of this book. Far different from the first in that sense, because the underlying takeaway is not what it takes from your calendar, but a reminder of what it takes from your character.
Same story. One more time. Different question. Who was actually steering? The algorithm picked the driver, traffic shaped the route shaped his mood shaped the moment shaped his decision to quitting shaped the LinkedIn message shaped the meeting. At what point was he actually the one choosing? And yeah, the story was a success, but that's not always the case. Luck can be involved sometimes in life as well. Do you want to be the one that doesn't choose?
At what point was he actually choosing? This is the part that gives me sleepless nights. Because in 10 years from now, technology won't just be used to do tasks, it'll be used to make decisions. Not the big heavy ones, like should I marry this person? Although, give it some time. I'm talking about the invisible ones. How to learn what to think, who to meet, those ones. And in that, I want you to pay close attention, because in the invisible choices that technology will shape for us in the future, there are two kinds of people who are cultivated. Those who know how to steer the ship, question it and use it, and those who just feel as though the future is happening to them. Same tools, same technology, completely different futures. That is not a gap in wealth. The disparity that we all hear about, yes, there are inequalities in income and wealth in this world, but in the future, I want your minds to point to a gap in agency, knowing how to steer the ship as your society speeds up will be ever so critical. Hopefully that idea that you can shape your own story and not let your story be written for you. So, one more time. 3 stories. Yet 1 reading. 3 stories. 1 story. Dominoes are falling faster. The cost is higher than we think. And the question of who's steering, that's not a future problem. It's kind of a now problem. Does the value lie in identifying which of these stories is the more valuable one? I'm not sure. But I do know, considering the fact that AI is so powerful, generating all of these images by itself, that the skill will be being able to hold these 3 books at once. To see the cascades, to protect what speed is trying to take away from us, and to remember to ask yourself the question, am I the one steering? Because the future will not just write one story, but that should be. Thank you.